Hello, good evening, everyone, once again. Welcome to the first 1,000 days and beyond, our webinar, which we have been bringing to you. This is the 13th one, and we have a very special guest today. So we have Kinnari with me as usual, and Kinnari, over to you to introduce our speaker today.
Yeah. Hello and good evening. Welcome back to many of you who've been regularly joining us and to all those of you who are joining the first time. We have a very special guest today, Dr. Venita Kaul. A long introduction about her professional journey, but we must say that she's been a mentor truly to many of us in the sector today, including the work that we've done at the Azim Premji Foundation and the university. Welcome, Venita ji. It's an honor and privilege to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Quickly to share a little bit about Venita ji, I think what we share is really little bit. So Venita ji is Professor Emerita at the Ambedkar University of Delhi, from where she retired in 2016. She was the director of the School of Education and the director of the Center for Early Childhood Education and Development, CECED, as we popularly know. Subsequent to that, she was the chief editor of the advisory board of a new journal. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar, but with one of those journals in the early childhood and children's space in our country. It's called the Children First, a journal on children's lives, right? She currently is on the board of directors of the Asia Pacific Regional Network of Early Childhood Care and Education, ARNEC. Again, it's a large Asia Pacific, South Asia Pacific network. Many of you may know of it or would be interested in joining a global network. Prior to this, Professor Kaul was a senior education specialist at the World Bank for over 10 years. And prior to that was heading the elementary and preschool education departments at NCERT, India. And she's been on several committees and several changes that have happened in the ECCE space. She's been a part of it and has led many of those. So welcome, Venita ji. We look forward to your thoughts and insights on the sector today.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I too look forward to this conversation.
So Venita ji, for many of us who followed early childhood care and education, your journey has been part of all the various transformations that have taken place over the last couple of decades or more. It would be wonderful for us to listen to you in terms of how your personal journey, in terms of your connect to this domain. When did that come to you? Come to your mind that ECCE is the domain that you want to work in, and then what are those milestones, if we can say, in your personal journey, which is connected to ECCE? If you could share some of that, I think that would be very insightful for us.
Certainly, Rishi. I would try to do that because you don't start with early childhood care and education. I don't think anybody does. Now, at least at that time, nobody did, because it was not one of the very known areas at that time. When I started, this was in the late 1970s, and which many of people who are listening and may not have been born as well, either that stage. I did my master's in psychology from Allahabad University, and subsequently did my PhD in psychology from IIT Delhi, because my interest was a lot in understanding human behavior. And I was very keen to study psychology further, and I was keen on doing clinical psychology. That was my my kind of interest area, and thought that that's where I would make a career. And so I came out from there, and then, as luck would have it, I was applied to some universities abroad. At that time, it was not so easy to get scholarships, so I wasn't able to make that. And then I got into NCERT. So when I got into NCERT, also I joined the psychology department. But as luck would have it, and my journey has been very much kind of related to the history of ECE in India, because NCERT was kind of the hub at that stage, right?
Right.
So when I joined NCERT, I joined on a very major project. It was a research project job, which was called the Developmental Norms Project. I don't know if anybody's even heard of that. That was the largest project that has happened in India ever.
I see.
Where at that time, this was Honor Gazelle's theory on child development. They were doing a survey of children 2.5 to 5 years across 8 states on each of the and assessing children on the developmental scale, Gazelle scale, which looked at the different aspects of development. And that was perhaps was the first time. I mean, Gazelle's work had been kind of establishing how children, the process of development, and how children all develop. I mean, each child develops at his or her own pace. So all that was coming through. So this was a major where we looked at the motor, adaptive, language, personal, social, all aspects of the development of children. So we were kind of, I mean, I got associated with that. And then soon after that project was over, it was again because it was part of the psychology department. Within that, there was a child study unit, and that was doing this project. Soon after, I think it was 1986. No, not soon. It couldn't be. Yeah, maybe 1986. I can't really remember what was the instigation to do it. But then the NCERT set up a department of elementary ECE and elementary education.
Nice.
And then we were given the choice of going into elementary education or ECE. So I, in the meanwhile, tried to do something in clinical psychology, and I realized that that was not really what I was into. But this was interesting me more, early childhood education. And so when we came into the elementary education department as part of the ECE unit, we started work there. And there it was fascinating because at that time there was a project on a children's media laboratory was being set up there. So that children's media lab, the idea was that ECE is emerging as an important area, but there are no picture books for children. There's no materials for children, toys for children of that age, So that age had not got that kind of thing. So the children's media laboratory was set up to make prototypes of different media, like storybooks, toys, more interesting films, all kinds of materials, even the more wood-based materials and, things like that. And that was a very fascinating phase where there were a few of us who were working in that space. And we were asked to write stories for children ourselves. So that was quite an experience to think through and do it, and then got some orientation in that. So it was a good learning experience. And then soon this evolved into a larger project called the Early Childhood Education Project, which was in 8 states, where the preschools had been set up with the schools, primary schools, in the government primary schools, where they were trying to see how a major challenge at that stage was dropouts in schools, because large dropouts were happening. And so the idea was to see also how ECE can make a difference, and how dropouts, does it have any impact on the reduction in dropouts. So there were about 65 schools in each state that were set up. This was the UNICEF assisted project. And I got to coordinate that project. So that was a very good opportunity to go and see. And to my mind, to this date, I would say, and I keep telling everybody that that was one of the best projects that we worked on, which we should kind of try to replicate now, where 8 states came together, of which 6 were SCRTs and 2 were colleges of home science, or university colleges, sorry. Andhra Mahila Sabha and Baroda. Yeah. So these were the 8 resource centers that were set up in the states. And each of them, so there was some kind of a decision that we would be doing storybooks for children, we would be doing some studies for children or curricular material, and each would develop their own. And so that was a tremendous thing to have very locally relevant materials, locally relevant stories coming out, and it was a very good phase. So that happened, and then after that, so something very interesting happened in that, which I wanted to share actually. It was
Yeah.
good learning. So 8 states, in 6 states, sorry, 7 states, got the usual people to come in as, a local community-based teacher to come in and be a teacher in the, it's like a para-teacher kind of,
Mhm.
But in Madhya Pradesh, Mr. Behra was the secretary. This is Anurag's father, I think, He was a secretary, and I don't know, some of our seniors must have spoken to him, and he got very convinced that, you must give the best to the preschool, because preschool is the most important period in the life of a child. So he got professionally, I mean, there were, home science colleges were running these nursery teacher training, Jabalpur nursery teacher training. Those teachers qualified from there who had come in as specially trained for this purpose. And they were sent to this Mandala block, which was a tribal block in Madhya Pradesh, and given salaries, I think, if I'm not mistaken, higher than the headmasters.
I see.
And told they cannot be transferred. That was the only condition. And so I remember Meena Swaminathan going and evaluating that program, and they found that it was excellent, what the teachers were doing. Obviously, they were highly motivated and had good salaries, and also trained. So then we did a study to see the effect on dropouts. In 7 states, we found a significant impact on positive impact on children's retention in schools. But in Madhya Pradesh, children dropped out more. For the simple reason that they've had such a good time in the preschool, and they came into primary class, they just couldn't take it, So that was when we probed further, okay, how come this happened? Because so much was invested in this.
Yeah.
Found that, yeah.
Very.
So that I just thought was an interesting experience, and that sort of gives a basis for this foundational stage curriculum that I hope we'll be talking about again.
Yeah.
So from that, then went on. After that, I continued to be in NCERT for a long time, and I became the head of the Department of Elementary Education. By that time, we had, in between, for 2 years, I went to a nursery school and worked there. And that happened because, again, it's a learning that I was asked by NCERT, by seniors, to do a curriculum for preschool, a curricular document. And I sat down to do it, and I couldn't, although I was doing training and research and had read up a lot and informed myself, I thought, adequately. But it was not easy to do that because you didn't have the hands-on experience of doing it. Okay. So I told Professor Muralidharan was my boss at that time. So I told her that, look, if you want me to do it, then I need to get out and work somewhere with children to be able to really get the hands-on. So for 2 years, I worked in the school, and that I thought that was one of the best periods of my career. And that enabled me to do that curricular document. I don't know, Kinnari, if you've ever seen Early Childhood Education Program. It was quite popular. And then after that, when I became the head of the department for preschool, by that time, this whole notion had come up that, there should be some continuity in the primary, and there should be more child-centered practice, etc. And so we did a document collectively in the department, which was called the Primary Years. I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to see that. It was also very much appreciated. But soon after, there was a shift in government and all that, and so it got shelved. So that had actually looked at the primary stage, done very collaboratively with a lot of people. Most of the people who were working in this would remember that document, since it all contributed to it. And then I moved to the World Bank for about 10 years. And there, so far, most of my work was with elementary education, but worked with the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, worked in the region, But so far as early childhood care and education is concerned, the span shifted kind of, and we did a multi-sectoral study, which was published as a document called Reaching Out to the Child, where we looked at intersectoral issues as well as systemic issues, more in terms of finance, more in terms of capacity, institutional capacity. And so that document was brought out by Oxford University Press later, called Reaching Out to the Child. And after those 10 years there, as luck would have it, AUD was coming up, Ambedkar University, and they were setting up these centers. So I got an invitation from Shyam Menon to come in and help set up the Center for Early Childhood Care and Education. So then till the 2016, I was there. And significantly, what I think we were able to do was, one was to initiate this MA ECCE, set it up. That was the first Masters in Early Childhood Care and Education program with the help of Tata Trust. And the other was the longitudinal research, which we did collaboratively, again, with Asar Center and many other, UNICEF and many other agencies, which I think, at least I believe, fed into the policy with the concept of the foundational stage. So I think that's been a pretty long journey. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how, like you mentioned, that your journey and very much the journey of the national institution, especially NCRT, and also the journey of ECCE in our country, it really seems to have gone hand in hand. And I remember
at that stage, it was a hub.
Yeah.
And there were actually these trainings happening in the home science colleges. They used to do this, maybe Anganwadi work, not Anganwadi, Balwadi workers training and so on, maybe even Anganwadi workers training. But any research or any other more policy-related work was all happening at the NCRT level. So it was good fortune for me that I would, at that time, I had the opportunity to really be part of that.
Yeah. And some of the works and the books that you've authored then with Meena Swaminathan and others are real classics. I mean, it's hard to find that kind of literature, simply written, very much at the heart of what we want to do as ECE. And it's still sought after. I mean, we really look forward to those in our courses and things. And of course, the journey of CECED itself, like you said, coming out with simple policy briefs for people in the sector, the longitudinal study has a history of its own. I mean,
we brought out, that reminds me also that we brought out these briefs for teacher educators in each of the aspects of development at that stage. And a lot of other manuals and for teachers and so on. So a lot of material was developed under this Children's Media Laboratory project, and then the Early Childhood Education project also.
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, that foundation stage is in some sense now well recognized, established. NEP has given the status that early years should ideally have, and made it systemic across all our schooling stage. And within that, the study, the longitudinal study and the FLN focus and results, what are some of your insights from that, a large scale study that was conducted, and where are we in terms of our FLN results, and what is it that we ought to study more, a three-pronged question, really.
Yeah, very good question. So I'll start with the ICI study, what it showed. So the ICI study, basically, to cut a long story very short, ICI study gave us this finding that preschool, because we had a very large sample, 42,000 children across 3 states, a rural sample. In that, what came out at the end of it was that that preschool participation, no matter what quality, but just the fact that the children are participating in preschool makes a difference, in the sense that children not going to preschool and preschool, there was a difference, even if they went to an Anganwadi, which was not very well functioning, but still it made a difference. The other finding was that if they went to a good quality preschool, then there was a very significant difference, compared to children who did not. And the third finding was that if they and there was a third group which was continuing from a good quality to a good quality, in the primary. So what was interesting was that in the case of those children who were going to a preschool and doing better, and those who were going to a good preschool and doing still better, as the children progressed, because we followed them up for 5 years, this whole sample. So as the children progressed, by the time they got into grade 3, by grade 1 and 2, it continued to be better. So there was a significant impact of what we measured as school readiness on the primary level performance of children in language and maths. So that was a given for classes 1 and 2. But when it came to grade 3, when we followed further, we found that there was a slight dip coming in. The dip was more significant for those who had not got a good quality preschool. But even for those who had got a good quality preschool, there was a decline coming in. But there was another category, which I was saying, which had got a good, these were NGO programs, which had got a good quality preschool and a good quality primary, grades 1 and 2. This is in grade 3. When we looked at the performance, we found that curve remained stable. That, the children that impact was not there because the foundation, that was our reasoning, that the foundation was very strong, and this continuum was addressed so that, that there was more stability in the foundation, because obviously it continued for 2 more years. So that was a recommendation that why I say it fed into the policy, because I had an opportunity to go and present it to Professor Krishna,
Professor Rangan.
Professor Kasturi Rangan, Dr. Kasturi Rangan and the committee. And it was responded to very positively. And so somewhere we had some contribution to make to that. So that was the finding. So now the implication of that finding, since you asked me what are the current, relating it to the current situation, the implication of that finding is that there should be continuity along the early learning continuum all the way up to the primary stage, and that continuity has to be in terms of the play-based pedagogy. You see, I mean, it's implied that if they have play-based pedagogy. Let me put it like this: when I'm saying that in those preschools where the quality was good, essentially they had a play-based pedagogy. So that play-based pedagogy was continuing, of course, elevated to an age-appropriate level, and the primary grades. In those situations, there was no dip that was there. So the condition was that it should be a continuum of pedagogy as well. What I see around, and this is my understanding, which I may be wrong, I may be right, I cannot say, but I see it a lot in terms of the interactions I have with different agencies, and very often manuals come to me for review and so on, that what has happened in the policy is that they've started talking about FLN. Now, one of the characteristics of this play-based pedagogy is that it is more developmentally oriented. It caters to the all-round development of the child into all aspects of development, including language and literacy and cognitive and numeracy, early numeracy. Whereas the minute it has come into the primary, then they are looking at FLN. FLN is foundational literacy and numeracy. So, I mean, I'm just at the moment looking at a particular project proposal that has come from some agency, which is otherwise a very good proposal. And they are saying that they will address the continuum, but then they are saying that they look at they call it the holistic learning in the preschool, and then they say language and maths. And even the primary is limited to language and maths, So that's the disconnect that needs to be broken. Somewhere, that's the communication aspect.
Yeah. No, as you rightly said, Sorry, you were about to finish.
And this is also, I am told, leading to the downward extension also happening, because at the simultaneously, I think what is happening is also in the system that this new guidelines have also come now, that the Anganwadis are being relocated to the schools, which could be a very potentially promising factor in terms of this recommendation. But it is having a reverse impact, because the expectation from primary is that the children will come with all the 3 R's, knowledge of the 3 R's. So again, that's what people are telling me, that it is backfiring because there is not adequate understanding in the system.
Yeah.
Right.
So you put it rightly, because I think it is about understanding, because even if those who read the policy, in a thorough manner, will understand that the FLN bit is particularly to address the, what one can say as the backlog that we currently have, because we did not have a foundational stage. So we have lakhs of children who are already in school without any kind of a grounding, and if they really have to continue surviving in the school system, their foundational literacy numeracy have to come in very quickly, and that is the reason why it's also on a mission mode now. Because there is a gap in that understanding, it's all getting confused with what needs to be done at the early years.
So what I feel is that this whole early emergent and early literacy domain, that needs to be sort of communicated better to people, to understand, place literacy in a more comprehensive perspective, because what is happening also is that literacy is being seen as the alphabet.
Yeah.
Or rather, language is being seen, not even literacy. Language is being seen as the alphabet. English, if you want to teach English, start with ABCD. So, or K, K, G, G in Hindi, like that. So, so the language, one oral language is getting kind of lost somewhere. And the other is, it is not being placed in a comprehensive frame, within the comprehensive frame of what I think emergent and early literacy really gives that substance to it.
Yeah, and that actually makes one wonder that how do we get this communication right in terms of, I think, the kind of studies, I'm just thinking aloud, that the kind of studies that have identified the FLN lag, so to say, are we also having studies with which perhaps are indicating the social, emotional, and physical lags that children are having, in terms of their performance over time, development over time? Unfortunately, the measurables are on literacy numeracy, and ACER and other reports just indicate that. We don't necessarily have a developmental evaluation for longer periods of time with regards to educational outcomes.
Yeah, very true. So I think now in order to fill that gap, I think that has been realized. So now there is this other curricular area of socio-emotional learning, which to my mind is something which needs to be very much an integral part of the curriculum. You don't need to have another curricular area for that, because it is much more in terms of the how and what you do in the classroom. So so that I don't know whether it's placing yet another additional burden on the children. I don't know how it is faring out. In the primary grades. Because in early childhood, it is very much integrated into the you're addressing the child. Another
so
point for reflect is, my favorite point, that in early childhood we teach the child, in primary we teach subjects, and something I think we should change that understanding, that there is a child who has to be
the whole child,
the whole
not
child.
just the language, math, science as disciplines, like you were saying. Right. Rishi, you're on mute, Rishi.
Sorry, my cursor is got stuck. So Venita ji, now, I mean, it's almost a 4-decade journey. I mean, initially the broad brush that you did, and finally now in terms of what we're trying to do with the new education policy. We've come a long way, right? I mean, from the time that you just started when probably people had not even heard of early childhood care and education as part of a formal system. We've come a really long way. But then we still have lots to do, or by now should have, in fact, achieved much more. What do you think are those big gaps? And, what do you think are the challenges really that those of us now in the domain uh, are confronting and, would confront if we have yet to come? Because I think it's still early days for us in that sense. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think somewhere the system, I think the policy has done one very good thing, that it has brought early childhood education center stage somewhat. That it was not even sort of considered earlier. So this has happened in the last few years. And I think this is also because of there were policies. It's not that this was the first policy that talked about early childhood education. I think even they said that the Kothari Commission in 1968 talked
Correct.
about childhood education. But I'm very sure, because 86, I was very much there. So in 86, policy also had a full chapter on early childhood education. And it also had a line which said there should be no didactic teaching of the 3 R's, but never got conveyed or communicated, because now we have technology and we have these other modes of communication. So that has really helped. And early childhood is now getting a lot of primacy. Every day you hear something new happening with early childhood education. But what it really needs is not being provided. So if we look at it, it needs to be made into it requires a lot of professional understanding. When you're handling a child, it's not so. I personally think it's easier to teach in a school, because you have a syllabus, you have the matter, the content, you just have to deliver. I mean, should not be that way necessarily, but that's how people do it. But in early childhood, we expect the teacher to be able to really interact with each child at his or own level, and also look at all the developmental aspects, be able to plan out play-based activities. Even if there's a given curriculum, it needs to be contextualized for children, because each context is so different. So all that requires skills, understanding, insights into child development, and it requires, and wherever it has succeeded across the world, they've had professional teachers for it. So first and foremost, I think the most important thing is that we need to have some kind of, and the policies talked about having graduation in early childhood education. But I see that NCT has come up with this, what is that called, program, ITEP program.
The integrated teacher.
They have not included early childhood, where there was a provision for that. So it is we are wanting to have a nice dish without putting any sugar into it. Hindi में हम कहते हैं ना, घी नहीं, जब तक चीनी नहीं डालोगे तो मीठा कैसे होगा. So that's a major issue. And then we are leaving it to Anganwadi workers. Anganwadi workers by themselves don't mean that they don't have the capacity. Now we have very good educated Anganwadi workers. Across the system, if you see, there was a time when I started when they used to be illiterate, most of them, or semi-literate. And it was a challenge to how to sort of communicate with them. But even in our ICI study and in subsequent many other studies, and we did another study on teacher education as well, the Anganwadi workers even are very well educated. Some of them are PhDs, So it's just there are no jobs available, or they want to be locally engaged, so they can come into this. So it's not that the individual doesn't have the potential, but it is basically there's no provision for that, number one. And my main concern is that they have multiple duties to do, because of this integrated program. There are 6 services. So each of those services demands some kind of activity from them. So if you look at the ministry documents, you will see that they have as many as 26 or some job responsibilities. None of us could have that many responsibilities as that poor Anganwadi worker. So, I always give this example. I went to Chhattisgarh for a study recently, not just before COVID, for to evaluate a program. And I found that there was a very good Anganwadi worker. She was doing such an excellent job, with the children. And I was observing her for the day, and then I told her that you're doing such a great job. The children are really fortunate to have a Anganwadi worker like you. And she said to me, ma'am, I'm so happy that you like what I'm doing. And the children were responding very well. She said, from tomorrow, I don't know when I'll see these children again. So I said, why? So she said, because I have to go. There is a survey of ration cards which has to be done. So tomorrow onwards, I'll be there for the next 2 weeks. And then after that, the local elections are coming. So we will have election duty. And I really don't know when I'll come back. And she said the Anganwadi, the helper and Chhattisgarh, they were giving excellent food to the children, and it was being cooked in the Anganwadi. And she said the helper is busy with the food. I mean, helper was also nice. So she said helper is busy with the food. How can she look after the children? Either she gives them food or she plays with them. So I really don't know what's going to happen to these children. She was so concerned. And that just speaks for a whole lot of Anganwadi workers, whoever you speak to.
Yeah.
So then we know the situation. I mean, we have to do something about it, Either we fix her time, we don't put her onto other assignments, at least outside of ICDS, ration card surveys, or those should not be their job, So somewhere this priority has to come in. So that is the second point. And the third point, I don't know what your question was, though.
Yeah, I mean, we were discussing on these gaps, these very gaps. Hence, what really are the challenges for us now after these 4 decades of work so far?
A major challenge, a very major challenge, which if we address, we'll be able to sort out many things, is the lack of awareness in the community about early childhood education. Because the parents, they do not know what play-based education is, how play can really contribute to children's learning and development. And they insist, and for them, reading and writing, the alphabet and numbers, that is what constitutes education. So that is their vision of education for the children. So somewhere we need to be able to demonstrate, and it's very difficult to make them change their opinion. I'll give you another story if I can. Would it be okay?
Sure, I think we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
So many years back, this is not a new thing, but so many years back when I was with NCERT, I was doing a program with some NGO staff and teachers and people there, workers. And I was giving them a lecture on play-based pedagogy. I mean, maybe a different terminology, but it was on play. And then one of them listened very carefully. And then suddenly he put up his hand and said, can I ask you a question? So I said, yeah, sure. And I was telling them that jo bachchon ko khelna bahut zaruri hai, aur I was talking in Hindi, or you must get them to play. So he said, can I ask you a question? So I said, yes. He said, and I'm quoting him, and I've remembered, it's retained in my mind so well. He said, ये कहाँ का न्याय है कि आपके बच्चे पढ़ें और हमारे बच्चे खेलें? And I had no answer to that question, So the answer to that question is that two things. One is parents are not aware of what is good quality early childhood education. And secondly, private schools are out of this sector. And those become the pace makers or the pace setters or the role makers. So what do we do? So that is another very big systemic issue that we have. And then, of course, there is this whole issue of there's no teacher cadre in early childhood care and education. We need to have not only for early childhood, we should have for the foundational stage. So we should have a cadre of teachers for the foundational stage. And of course, budget is a major issue. I sort of say that there are 5 C's. There is community, there is in them somewhere, community, capacity, convergence. Convergence is a major issue between departments, and curriculum, and costs, and community. So these are the 5. So C's. So if we need to address this systemically, to be able to.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Venita ji, just thank you. I mean, the way you've laid out the number of gaps, and especially this gap on what is playway, and then how do you develop this capacity for playway, and why does it become necessary to understand that playway is not just khelna or time pass,
Absolutely.
but that in
Absolutely.
itself is the learning that children need. And when we talk of the whole child,
Can I
I'm
just
just
say one
thinking,
more thing here, Kinry?
yes, yeah, yeah.
So when I'm saying the community needs to be oriented, it is an
Hmm.
issue of supply and demand. That the demand is for padhana, so the supply is also padhana.
Ah,
They do what. So if we are able to change the nature of the demand by making them aware that then there will automatically be a positive impact on what the schools will also do. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
right.
And as you rightly said, I mean, in the private space, if for
Hmm.
instance it is, the focus on alphabet and numbers, obviously, I mean, they are setting the pace. And unfortunately, the good practices, even in the private space, they remain alternatives. So
Yeah.
they remain very elite. So actually, when you look at very elite alternative spaces, that's precisely what's happening, the good
Hmm.
practices that we're talking of. But then that's not come into the private mainstream,
No,
which
not
is
at
the
all.
pace setter for the rest of the society. And so that's really, I think, where the issue is.
You have a very
That's
large
right.
what you call the affordable sector, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Affordable schools. So they are just not there. So, and most of the time, people in our profession, we say that we should not engage with the private. But I think if you don't engage with the private, you are missing out on a very major influence factor.
Yeah, yeah. So, in fact, we had conversations like we are having the one with you with a colleague from the Clay preschools, again, one of those premium chains of preschool, and Swati Popat from the Podar network. And it's interesting that they similarly advocated for what is high quality early childhood.
Hmm.
But like very precisely what we're discussing, that this is not necessarily the demand from the parents who want their children to learn and be educated in the narrow sense,
Yeah.
where literacy, numeracy, alphabet learning, speaking in English, uniforms become primary rather than playing with mud and sand and other things that children
Yeah.
can or should be doing in this early years. So, okay, so the messaging, the community understanding, recognizing play way as significant aspects of early childhood development is something that needs to become central to teacher education,
Absolutely.
any form of teacher education. Yeah,
I would put it
so
like this,
that's
that you need an enabling environment. No?
right.
So
Right.
that
Not a
environment, if it is
constricting environment to make
not
children sit and
environment.
write and
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
No,
Right.
not only in the
So,
school system. I'm saying
hmm,
generally, even for a policy to implement, you need to
right.
have an enabling environment, and that comes from preparing the people for it.
That's right. Yeah. So across levels, I mean, school
Because
leaders to supervisors, monitors to have an approach and understanding. And I think, like we always look up to the Scandinavian countries and their preschool or others, these are recognized systemic ways, and that's what even NEP and the ECCE policy had done. But somehow the demand still remains to be the 3 hours on the ground. So yeah, yeah, that's quite a gap and a I mean, we'll have to travel quite a bit to reach a good playway culture of ECCE. Really, yeah. Yeah. So again,
and the
coming to the
other one more
question on
point is that comes to my mind is that it's not even easy to you can't convey to somebody that this is good and that will be accepted. But especially in the case of this play-based pedagogy, my experience is that one needs to demonstrate it with children. When you demonstrate it with children in a classroom, what it does to children, that's the only way to convince people. By
right,
sending out leaflets or pamphlets or organizing orientation program doesn't help. They can come and go, but
right,
uh,
right.
yeah.
So people need to experience the potential of it
It's the
and how
potential
to
and
do it.
the
Yeah,
impact on children, how
children,
children,
correct.
children behave differently in a play-based setup.
Yeah, yeah, right, right. And I think that in some sense addresses the TPD question, that how should teacher education programs respond and incorporate this in their curricula. I mean, today there are a whole lot of teacher education programs going on, right from the government-led Nishtha programs on the Diksha platform to several diplomas, among which, at the we offer UNICEF, IGNOU. There's a bunch of those good quality diplomas that are available for teachers, but the quality of the content and how teachers experience this again in that. And
So there
again,
again, I'm just saying it from my experience that when we had that early childhood education project, we confronted this problem like in any other. Everyone does the way you're saying it, because NCRT trainings used to be in the classroom. You organize and somebody comes and gives a lecture and you go back, and we realized that it has to be more hands-on. So we came up with this training and also these are 3 days, 4 days, 5 days trainings. So what can you achieve in that? So we came up with this hands-on training, and we had this nursery school, a lab school. And so we used to have these SCRT people coming in for training. So we took them to those lab schools. We used to have these ICDs, CDPOs coming in. So we took them to those to the school, and excellent practice. But then they said, have you seen our Anganwadi? You brought us here. We don't have these facilities. How can we do it? And so they walked out of the program. So the lesson we learned was that you have to work with Anganwadis and show it to them. You can't show it to them. So that's another thing. The trainings need to be in settings which are realistic, in which they have to go and apply those trainings, ideally in their own on-site training. And it should be very well conducted by people who are mentoring, who are actually well versed with that, with the pedagogy, and have actually done it themselves, experienced people. So that is important.
Yeah. Right. And just reminds me that, several of the good NGO-run programs that have worked in the ICDS are where Anganwadis have become peer teachers and the trainings are happening on site. And like you mentioned, the professionalizing of the domain, that recognizing their worth as teachers, to give them that space to share their dilemmas, experience, all of it together has to happen in a concerted way across levels, again, not just at the Anganwadi, but as much as the preschools and schools that teachers are really.
I think so. Most importantly, the system needs to appreciate teachers. No? When you appreciate the teaching as a profession, I think then the point you are making is very important, that, then everything falls into place, because then you want to give it the best, so that, whatever's there is really the best. And the mentors coming from experienced teachers, it also puts various of these things into a perspective. No?
Yeah.
So I was thinking, for the ECCE domain, so one is, of course, teachers and, preparation of teachers and all this being crucial. But then there are other various kinds of roles which I think are also very useful. So, Venita ji, what do you think for us beyond the teachers currently in the domain, where we need, let's say, professional people coming in who would be well equipped with the domain, with the knowledge of the domain and understanding of the domain as it should be? What are those kinds of roles that you would see?
Actually, amazingly, there are many many fields that are opening up to early childhood. Just yesterday, I got an invitation to join a panel discussion from Kerala. They are doing the urban planning. They're going to be. So actually, I've been part of a project earlier with BVLF, in which they had this. What was it called? Neighborhood challenge. For children. And in that, the urban setups had been asked to prepare, do some innovations in their urban planning which would be able to cater to the needs of children. So now that has been taken up by Kerala. This was a small project. It has been taken up by Kerala and becoming very much a part of the urban planning. So they're having a seminar. So what I'm trying to say is that this is a new area altogether where architecture and early childhood education come together. Architecture or town planning, urban planning, whichever is the discipline feeding that, and early childhood education. So I'm sure, and that's what we advised, I remember, because many cities had done those plans. So we advised that please get in touch with local and have somebody on your team who is an early childhood education person, so that you are able to meet children at their level. So, so that's one area, so like this, more now toys and play materials, that's another dimension altogether. Even AI, I think, is offering tremendous, because there is so much of actually confusion also, with so much of initiatives also coming through of how AI can support, whether it should and how it should, and so on. So that's another area in which I think meaningful involvement can be there. More informed involvement can be there of professionals from early childhood care and education. Within the urban space, you can have playgrounds, like designing of playgrounds, designing of child libraries. There is this whole after-school programs, which is another category. So you could. So I mean, there is a need to have people like this who are. See, today what I see, and you will be able to know better, that more and more youngsters are getting entrepreneurial, and it's sort of, they are taking initiatives to do things on their own. So they could be sort of thought leaders in all this, what can be done to be able to reach out to children in a more comprehensive manner. Of course, creches, daycare, that is already there, so those kind of facilities are there, and that also offers opportunity for entrepreneurship. Each of these do in a way, but that is also there. So like that, I think there are. It's a significant. It's basically when you look at the climate change is another one. Getting into this whole impact of climate change and sort of, what can be done. Actually, that's one area for research also that we need to be looking at. So, so all these domains are now emerging, which are inviting participation from early childhood professionals.
Just listening to the gamut of things that you've opened up, I mean, so far our entry as ECCE professionals has either been through teaching or psychology, right? And many of us from child development, human development professions. But the moment we kind of integrate and see that wherever we need to think of children as important, citizens, people, automatically the need for a professional to contribute to all the spaces. I mean, be it town planning, be it garment industry, be it toys, be it nutrition. I mean, one shouldn't necessarily see their entry only into the educational or care and development sector. We really need to have a space for early childhood professionals in any ways, in any areas.
You see the private, I mean the elite. I'm talking more of an elite, but even the so-called underprivileged, they send children for tuitions. They sent. So I was once when I was at AUD, because through the students engaged with some parents, why do you send these little children to tuition? They said, "हमें काम करने होते हैं, कोई देखने वाला तो होता है." So it was not necessarily about academic tuition, but it was that they would be taken care of. So again, then you need to have programs like that, which you can do with maybe music, you can do with play, you can do with libraries, so much you can offer, depends on how,
In fact, there's a very interesting comment. There are many comments coming in, Venita ji, pretty much agreeing to things that you're saying, even on AI. One, of course, the opportunities, but at the same time, the pitfalls that one has to watch out for. And so, I
Yeah.
mean, it's very important for ECCE professionals to really understand, what the domain is about, so that all these engagements then can be done in a manner that it doesn't become a pitfall, but then it's actually used as an advantage.
Absolutely.
And children's literature, another one that has come in by Parveen ji is, I think, if you are an ECCE professional, then engaging in children's literature and developing, writing, publishing, which, of course, as we know, there's very little compared to what many other societies have in our society in terms of very good children's literature. For instance,
Absolutely.
just picture books that all of us can use with very young children. Very, very few that we can find which have emerged from our own context. So I think, so there are, as you said, multiple things as and when youngsters can put their mind into it after get immersed into a domain like this, that possibilities are endless.
Yeah, and I think we should share with the maybe a suggestion, which unsolicited suggestion, that
Okay.
for your master's program, I think you have an option of the thesis and something else, but then we could
That's
open up
right.
some options in this area, about so that they could explore. I mean, they could then help to widen.
Very much. Very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Kinnari,
Yes.
I think we're also almost running out of time. You want to speak about some
Yes,
of these
I think
programs?
it's a good time to we'll take a couple of minutes to just share with our audience at Azim Premji University, there are various ways in which we contribute to the domain, right? At field, with state curricular development, and offering full-fledged master's program and diploma programs for working professionals, and many other universities and institutions do. So if wherever you belong, there are good institutions, and of course we at the university offer these. So just to quickly say that we've recently launched this 2 years master's program, July 2025. Our first batch is here doing our program, and few areas that we cover. I mean, a bunch of things. A lot that we have discussed today and in our webinars, some core foundational understanding about the domain itself, and then this option that Venita ji was just referring to, that there is a practice pathway and a research pathway. So students can really choose an internship pathway and explore, working with a publishing house, working with a media house, maybe with the toy industry, or take up a question that is relevant and look at a thesis in that area. And of course, a bunch of indicative electives, one of which we think, and many of which we think are critical to expand the domain knowledge, including something on actually becoming entrepreneurs, or managing programs, looking at assessments in early years. So we are hoping that a bunch of these will really give the foundational core understanding and open up areas which students can pursue as professionals in ECCE. Just a quick snapshot of what our campuses look like. The Azim Premji University Bangalore campus is where we offer the 2-year MA in ECCE and the MA in Education program. At the Bhopal campus, we offer the MA in Education program, which has a shorter component on ECE within the master's program. Eligibility criteria are basically having an undergrad degree, right? To do any of our masters, you need an undergrad degree, and then go through some of these entrance test requirements, or you can apply as a CUET candidate as well, right? We have we signed up for that. And practitioners, if you want to switch domains, if you are passionate and you think you need to do something, if you have an entrepreneurial mind, that you want to start something on your own, all of these form a good class group for us, and our current batch is quite representative of the backgrounds our students come from. This, of course, is something that we will come back to. Our admission cycles start very soon. Next month onwards, we will have our applications open. So if you feel there are younger students, undergrads seeking to develop a career for themselves, or you are a working professional and want to pursue some of our diploma programs, right? Those are avenues for you to strengthen your own capacities working as a teacher or a professional. So we welcome you to explore our programs. Reach out to outreach@apu.edu.in. A lot of our YouTube videos will provide lots of information about many of these programs, and the university's website, which is again a rich resource. The publications, we recently came out with a play, foundational stage and play and early learning, a practitioner's compilation, so many programs offering playwave that we were discussing today have actually been documented to say how can you have constructive playway classrooms, right? So do reach out, do be in touch, and we shall be coming up with many pioneers and experts within the domain to discuss what ECE is and what it should look like, going forward. So yeah, that was
So
quickly.
there's a question on any diploma, but Kinnari, I think you just touched upon it. So yes, we have the masters as well as the diploma, and diploma is a hybrid program. So you'll get all the details on our website. So since there was a question that came in after you had shared that information, Kinnari, I thought it'll be useful. And yeah, so please reach out if you want any further information. So it's Venita ji, time to thank you for this wonderful 1 hour. I mean, for me, it was almost like, again, walking through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the 2000s, right? And how early childhood care and education as an idea gets formed, and then small implementation projects, and then, from NCRT, how these finally start coming into the field, and how then, of course, today across the country, we have different curricula. A lot of it, of course, goes back to some of those researches that you did, and a lot of work that has happened till now. But as you rightly pointed out, the gaps are there, the challenges which we have to address them. Hopefully, for all the wonderful foundational work that you and many like you over the years have done, many of us and many of our audiences who are much younger, will benefit from it, and will take it forward to hopefully create a fantastic ECCE space in our country for our young children. With that, thanks a lot for joining in this conversation.
Thank you very much. The field is in your hands now, so you need to carry it forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Venita ji. That was a very rich conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you all, audience, once again for joining us. Yeah. We'll come back with our next one. Again, we'll have another very exciting guest to have a conversation with. We'll keep you posted on that. Thanks once again for joining.
Thank you.